Today I'm going to sign three bills that are educational bills that deal with a fundamental issue of our state. It's a number one issue as far as our budget goes, and that's to invest in education. The Illinois Constitution makes education a fundamental right, and I believe in that. It's a duty of all of us to do the very most we can to help education from birth to when we pass, and that means early childhood education, K to 12, community colleges, four-year universities, and beyond. And these particular three bills deal with all of those issues. They deal with early childhood and special education. They also deal with the importance of scholarships where our students who go to college. There are many students in Illinois who have the ability to do college work, but they cannot go because of lack of finance. And we can't have that great talent lost to the people of Illinois. And so our state, for some years, over half a century now, has a program, a monetary assistance program that provides scholarships to thousands of students. We'd like to do even more, but clearly the budget issues that have squeezed our education budget have prevented us from doing everything we'd like to do. Indeed, in this budget, it's pretty much a flat budget with respect to investing in education. We're lucky to have that, frankly, because there were some changes in federal tax law that on April 15th of this year gave us a fiscal dividend in the state of Illinois. The federal changes helped us at the state level. We got about $1.3 billion that we didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year into our budget, and we've been able to hold the line on our educational investment. But the bottom line is we do not have enough money for our schools in Illinois, for all of our education. And that is due to the fact that we've had a squeeze by the pension systems that are required by law to have full investment. And since I've been governor, unlike previous governors, I've invested whatever the law required to make sure that we invested in our pensions so that it didn't go further into the liability situation. But I think it's important that all the people know when I sign these bills today that we can do better for our schools in Illinois if we have fundamental, comprehensive public pension reform. That is job one right now for our legislature and for all of us to get that done so we can have in the coming budget year more investment in education, more investment in years to come. So I'm going to sign these bills right now on behalf of the people of Illinois. So these three bills have been signed. They invest billions of dollars in our schools in Illinois, but I still feel, and I think the people feel, we can do better with pension reform. We can have more money for our children, for their education, for our students, for their future. And it's very important we understand that as we go through these next few days to July 9th, which I've set as a deadline for the conference committee that I suggested to the legislature to break their gridlock, to have a crowbar, frankly, that can break the gridlock that the legislature is engaged in with respect to pension reform. I feel that it's extremely important that members of the conference committee, all 10, as well as all the members of the General Assembly, understand that we are in an emergency. This is urgent. We've had plenty of discussion and debate and research on this issue of pension reform. Now it's time for the conference committee to come together, bridge the differences, forge an agreement, put it before their members of the House and Senate by the deadline of July 9th so we can move forward with our state of Illinois.
Governor, Senator Raoul said today that it was irresponsible to set an arbitrary deadline for them to come back with a bill, and Representative Zaleski said it was setting the committee up for failure. How do you respond to those two?
Well, I've seen conference committees at both the federal level in Washington and also in Springfield over the last 40 or so years. Generally, when they're appointed, they get to work right away. They don't wait 8 days to get together. I think it was a little disappointing that the members of this conference committee took their own sweet time at even coming together. I frankly thought last Wednesday they would sit down right away and work round the clock to get this mission accomplished. I have told the members of this conference committee and all the legislators and their leaders, my staff, including the budget director, we're willing to work round the clock through the 4th of July holiday, whatever it takes to get the job done. That's what the people want. Every day, we're losing millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars. And it's time for the legislature to realize how urgent this is. This is an emergency. We cannot continue with this. You know, just listening to some of these folks on that committee, they've spent more time complaining about the deadline than they should, in my opinion, spend time doing the work of getting pension reform. Instead of complaining about the deadline, get the work done. Get down to brass tacks and concentrate. And that's what the people want. I'm ready to work around the clock. Our staff is willing to work around the clock. And I really feel these folks on that committee that are charged with getting a compromise agreement that can get the job done should focus on that goal and not complain. Well, it's an interesting point. At the beginning of the year, the various predicting agencies of the House, the Senate, they have another agency that kind of works together with them in predicting the revenues that we would get, did not include this particular revenue that we received on April 15th. The federal government changed some tax laws literally on December 31st of last year, and that led to unanticipated revenue for our state on April 15th. We're happy to have it. We've applied it properly to things that count, like education and health and public safety. But I think legislators shouldn't kid themselves. This is not going to happen every year. And we got a Band-Aid this year that helped us keep our education investment as high as it could be under the circumstances. But the bottom line for our legislators to understand is failure to act on public pension reform will mean that we have less money than we should for our kids, for their education. And so this is a mission that legislators should understand for the future of Illinois, for our children, for our taxpayers. You know, just yesterday, our state issued $1.3 billion of bonds to repair roads and fix the red line, to build new schools, to help our railroads crisscrossing our state. But that money, when we issued those bonds, we had to pay a premium of roughly $130 million that should have not had to been paid, but we had to pay it because we had 2 bond downgrades last week. We've had further credit downgrades in the past, and that was all because of failure to act on public pension reform. This continued failure to put a bill on my desk so I can sign it into law to resolve this crisis will continue to hurt the taxpayers of Illinois and our ability to build what we need to do for the people. The people want action. They do not want complaints.
Governor, let's see with you going back to the House and Senate not being able to agree on some bill. Is this an issue about stating a certain dollar amount, or Senator Raoul said this had a moral obligation? Where do you stand? Which would you tell the committee needs to be their focus?
I've been working on this issue for the last couple of years, and where I stood at the beginning, where I stand in the middle, and where I stand today is we need comprehensive pension reform. We need to erase the liability. It's nearly $100 billion. We need to make sure that our systems are fully funded, 100%. That's what all of my principles are about. That's what I've said from day one, and I will continue to say. Anything that the legislature proposes to me that's piecemeal or insufficient or inadequate will be vetoed. And they have been told that over and over again.
So this focus on the moral aspect of offering defined benefit plans, that's a waste of time?
When you talk about morality, to me the fundamental moral question is what are we doing for our children? In America, parents and adults sacrifice some of their present to help their children's future. That's what our legislature has to do now. This conference committee has to forge an agreement, comprehensive pension reform, so we can help our children and their education and their future. And I think it's pretty darn important that this work get done. And the idea of taking 8 days off before even meeting, I think is quite disappointing. They still have enough time. there's no question they have enough time by July 9th to get a bill, put together a compromise, bridge their differences. That's what democracy is all about. Put that bill before the House and Senate, get it passed. I'll sign it that day. And I think that's what the people want.
Governor, is it also disappointing that at this hearing, however long it was delayed, pretty much all of the opinions and statements that are being made are exactly the same position as these parties held all along? Nothing's changed.
We don't need Groundhog Day. And if that's what folks think is the way to get a pension comprehensive solution, they're on the wrong track. We need everyone to come with a fresh mind. The way conference committees in our state and in our country have worked together, they understand that sometimes people have differences of opinion. Well, we want to bridge those differences. That's what democracy is about, working together for the common good. That's what I believe in. And I think everybody in our state who pays taxes believes in that principle. And so for the conferees or for any members of the General Assembly to think they're going to waltz through the next couple of weeks and not come up with a solution for the people, they're missing the boat because it's very, very important that they get their job done. That's what the people want.
Governor, what happens if July 9th goes without a pension?
I'm going to continue to do my job, and I expect the legislature to do their job. And if they don't do their job, they have a lot of explaining to do to the people of Illinois.
Is it fair to, going back to education funding, and tell Chicago Public Schools to wait on pensions until state pensions are addressed?
Well, on the last day of the legislative session, there was a combined effort where agreement was forged between the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House to seek a pension holiday for the Chicago public school system. Well, that's the wrong road to take. That's what got our state in a lot of trouble. And, I said no to that. I said that very day I would veto that. And that did not pass. So I am for the school children of Chicago. I live in Chicago, and I was on a local school council in my neighborhood. I was elected by the community. I understand how important education is. It's the key to a successful democracy. But in order to do it right, we must reform the pension system that goes to our teachers and to all those in education. And that's what I'm talking about. That's what the people want. They do not want to see literally millions of dollars every day added to pension liability because legislators fail to act. They must act.
Why don't you, Governor, proposal, Governor, you always wait for them to come to you and say the same. Why don't you propose something?
I have from the very start. I gave all the parameters. I laid out a comprehensive solution for the legislature. I've stuck to my guns from day one. We have to erase the liability, not a piecemeal liability change. We've got to erase the pension liability of $100 billion, and we have to make sure we fully fund the systems in the future. That's what I have laid out. I've spelled out specifics. Our staff has. We've met individually with legislators. We've had work groups. We've had studies and research. We've had scoring by actuaries. We've had everything. So the idea that we haven't done what's necessary is totally false. The members of the legislature and this committee, they know what's out there. Put the ingredients together, forge an agreement, get it to me, we'll sign it into law.
Governor, one thing I heard this morning that people who understand pension funding and deficits better than we have is the whole requirement that the pensions be funded to 100%. When in fact in private industry, in our business, in our pension plans, 80, 85, 90% is sufficient. If that were the requirement for the state, it would not lead to any failure to pay pensions. It would not lead to any big problems. They were talking today a little bit about, okay, maybe we relax that 100% to 90% like private industry. Is that something you could consider to change the formula and maybe ease the blow?
No, that will cost taxpayers billions of dollars, that piecemeal approach. We've got to do it right and do it right the first time. Illinois, before I was governor, under previous governors, previous legislators, they did a lot of easy street things. They took the easy street, and that's gotten us into this very serious crisis. And so we have to get out of the crisis and do it the right way. 100% funding is what I'm aiming for, and that's what the people want.
Governor, what are the questions of unions who were at the table who say that
Well, I want to make sure we have a fair retirement for all of those who work for the public, whether they be state employees. About 28% of this problem are state employees, their retirement systems. The remainder are the retirement systems for teachers in the suburbs and downstate, and teachers and other educational personnel at our community colleges and four-year universities. I want to make sure they have a good, decent retirement. At the same time, the whole cost of living adjustment, that has to be looked at, because the compounding of the COLA, as it's called, the cost of living adjustment, is costing billions of dollars to taxpayers that are unaffordable. So we must deal with this, and that's part of the pension issue. We've laid out some specific ways of being fair to all. I don't think anyone's going to get scalped here. There will, we may all have to take a haircut, but that's part of what we have to do to get a compromise and forge an agreement in order to get something done for the common good. If we don't put together an agreement that gets comprehensive public pension reform, our economy will continue to suffer, and that means jobs. And if we want to help the most people, it's called JOB.